Hello, and welcome back. This video is about building a fire weapon gameplay ability that shoots out some blam blam. And a special thanks to all my supporters. Thank you for helping me help others. So the first thing we're going to do is add a function to our weapon blueprint base class. We're going to call this fire at enemy, keeping it in line with the other function names. For now, all this is going to do is print out a message, blam blam. With that, we're going to go into our gas folder. We're going to right click. We're going to go to gameplay, gameplay ability blueprint, and we're choosing just the base gameplay ability. We call this GA underscore fire weapon. And in here, the first thing we're going to do is call get avatar actor from actor info. If you remember from our C++, we initialized the ability system component with an avatar and an owner. Since the AC was attached to the tower is both the avatar and the owner. So we use that here to then be able to cast to our BP tower base. The flow of a gameplay ability, it's effectively activate ability gets called. You will want to commit ability if you're using resources or cooldowns, or just generally it's a good flow. When you're done, you should call end ability. If you don't call end ability and you try to activate ability again, it generally just won't work. So I'm going to do this flow a little differently. We have a number of situations where we'll have two paths here, the successful and the unsuccessful path. So instead of putting end ability on all the unsuccessful paths, we can then just call a sequence. And when everything is done, we're just calling end ability. So with our tower base blueprint, we want to get weapon. And there is no weapon because I had that set up in my prep project, but not in this one. So let's create that. So back in our tower base, we have our child actor weapon here, which is the weapon. What we need to do is we drag that out. So there can be a little confusion here because our child actor weapon is actually a child actor component, which means we can't just drag that out and cast that to our BP weapon. The child actor itself, we have our child actor class, which this was set in the turret tower, for example, to the turret weapon. To get access to that instead, we need to call get child actor. And then that is the reference that we can then cast to BP weapon. So with that done, then we can save this as a variable and we'll just call it weapon. So that back in our gameplay ability, we now have get weapon. We can convert this to a validated get. And then with the weapon, we also want to get the target, which we can convert as well. So given the way we've designed everything, the tower should always exist. The weapon attached to the tower should always exist. The target will not always exist. In the case where it does exist, this is where we're calling our commit ability. This attempts to spend the ability, resources, etc., and set up the cooldown. So from that, we can then just do a branch. When commit ability has returned true, then we can use our weapon to fire at enemy. Our weapon, not our target. And then of course the sequence will happen in call end ability. So we don't need to manually add it here as well. So as you may have seen in some of my previous videos, we can choose to spawn our projectile here, set its target or direction, and damage, and call that done. That design works just fine. We could inherit from the fire weapon gameplay ability for each weapon type and have each weapon work a little differently. Or we can make it as generic as possible and let the individual weapon differentiate how each will behave. Neither design is inherently better, but one may be better for your project. With that done, we can then go into our tower base. So in our tower base, we basically just want to be activating the fire weapon ability every frame. The ability itself would determine the cooldown and whether it should actually do anything or effectively return immediately. So we drag out our ability system component. We're going to be calling try activate. So there's 3 of these. The ability takes an ability tag, of course, takes a tag. You set an ability up with a tag. It'll fire 1 or more that have that tag. For us, we already have a default ability class set, so we can use try activate ability by class. And the ability that we're sending in, this is not a static value here. This is going to be our get default ability. And since we're making the fire weapon gameplay ability generic and able to fit all 4 of our tower types, we can just set this as the default ability in our tower base class instead of doing it for each individual tower blueprint. So we set that to our fire weapon gameplay ability. Each tick it will call that, try to activate it. And if we run this right now, we go in, we set down a tower. As soon as it's in range, you can see it's spamming. So every tick it's calling the fire ability. The fire ability is calling the fire at enemy on the weapon, and it's printing out that message. So to do a cooldown, we basically go back and create a gameplay effect. So that's a blueprint class. Search for gameplay effect. We'll call this GE Fire Weapon Cooldown. And the way that a cooldown gameplay effect works is it needs 2 components. The first is the duration. We're going to set our duration to has duration. We can set a value in here. This will be 1 second of cooldown, or we can use our attribute that we set up previously. So we want attribute based. We'll expand this. The backing attribute is our tower sets fire rate. This attribute source is coming from the source, and you may wonder how it knows that the tower is the source. This gameplay effect will not be directly connected to the tower, but since this gameplay effect is being used by the gameplay ability, and that gameplay ability is attached to the tower, then that's where the source in a gameplay effect will come from. So that's the first part that needs to be set. I will show you why we need the second. Once we're in or back in our gameplay ability, we have cooldown gameplay effect class. So then we choose our cooldown here. And while this is set up, the problem is in the part they don't, tell you, so to speak, is that the second part is needed. So the second part is while this gameplay effect is being created, it lasts for 1 second. The gameplay ability is not tracking the gameplay effect through the existence of the gameplay effect. It's actually tracking it through the use of a tag. So in here, we need to add a component. The component will be grant tags to target actor. And the tag that we're adding here is we go and hit this plus. We want weapon.cooldown. Need to select the source and hit add new tag and select it. So the little bit of confusion that may happen here is we have this, it's called target tags. It's grant tags to target actor, but I just talked about how we're actually the source. But down here you can both see that target tag says it's granted to actor, So it says here, handles granting tags to the target, sometimes referred to as the owner. So it's a little ambiguous because target does actually mean something else in this system, but in this case, the target is the owner. So maybe this should have been called grant tags to owner actor. I don't know. Yeah, with that set up, it's now using the fire rate from the source. It's using the tag correctly. The default fire rate was 1.0. So if we set this up, you can see then it prints out, and then a second later prints out another one. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video and would like to see more, you know what to do. And if you would like to support this channel, watch these videos 2 weeks early, or just want to download the project files, you can do so through my Patreon linked below.